Hey guys, I got another entry in the anti-despair reading list. This one is kind of like on-the-ground stuff that you can do that can start to build a better future. I think a lot of the time when you hear about what's going terribly wrong in the world, it comes down to people saying like, oh, it's, we need to abandon oil or we need to overthrow capitalism or things like that. And that stuff can be a little overwhelming, especially if you have like a day job and kids and things like that. So the one I'm going to recommend is What Then Must We Do by Gar Alperovitz. It's straight talk about the next American Revolution. Alperovitz also covered a similar topic in America Beyond Capitalism. It just goes into a little bit more depth, so you could also take that one out too. Alperovitz really cut his teeth in the Rust Belt cities of the Midwest, so like Youngstown, Ohio, places like that where corporations in the 70s and 80s all went abroad and outsourced everything and basically laid off enormous swaths of the working population. And in Youngstown, in at least one place, the workers were like, okay, well, the company's leaving. We're just going to take over the factory and we're just going to run it by ourselves. They can go to Mexico or whatever, but the building's still there. We'll go in there and we'll start doing it on our own. And through like these efforts to kind of rebuild a community that had been completely decimated by like neoliberalism and capitalism, he really learned a lot about what makes communities function and what helps them to sustain themselves even in the face of like really frightening things like like economic recessions or climate change. And one of the cool things about Alperovitz is a lot of the stuff that he's advocating for doesn't sound like socialism as most people would understand it. He's not really calling for an actual overthrow of the government. He's just talking about communities kind of like reclaiming some of their wealth. So one of the things that's really popular, the only place it exists currently in the United States, although New Jersey's trying it, is North Dakota. They have a public bank. And a public bank is basically like any other bank. You can get a mortgage there, but rather when you're not paying to a corporation, which is then, speculating and doing all sorts of terrible shit with your money. It's to the state, which then takes the money and puts it back into the community, into other houses. That's popular in North Dakota, even though that's like a very red conservative state, because it's something that just supports the community and anyone can pretty much see that. A lot of the stuff that Alperovitz is advocating for is similar in the sense that it doesn't actually sound all that controversial, even though it is effectively revolutionary. He talks about credit unions as being an alternative to banks in that they are way more responsive to the people who actually put their money into credit unions. He talks about employee stock ownership programs, which if you can get the employees owning the majority of a company, that is seizing the means of production in a very real sense. He talks about co-ops. He talks about B corporations, which are corporations which have some responsibilities to like their local community and to their local environment, which a lot of other corporations don't. And he also talks about trying to get these affordable housing associations, which really try and get people in the community into homes that they can actually then start building their own wealth. Obviously, this has huge implications for things like racism in America. It has huge implications for just building up stronger grassroots communities. If people aren't completely devastated and poor all the time, they can start making more decisions for themselves and they can start gaining more autonomy. And that way, you're not just waiting on, a president to do the right thing or waiting for an elected official to actually follow through on their promises. You're actually doing stuff in your own community. So if you feel disempowered, I would definitely suggest reading What Then Must We Do or America Beyond Capitalism by Gar Alperovitz.